Oh, the danger is that wherever you grow it, it's a form of contamination. You put seed into the ground that will germinate for 16 years. You transport it, it flies off the back of trucks onto roadsides. You harvest it, it gets stuck into harvesters and gets transported to other fields. So we are contaminating this year. If it goes ahead, we will contaminate the fields with GM canola.
In Canberra, Dr. Sumik, I heard that she came up first with 5 metres. They said that won't be enough, so she's given 10 metres as a pollen barrier. Now, I can remember the information years ago. I read that pollen from New South Wales has been found in New Zealand, and they're going to give us a 10-metre pollen barrier. For goodness sake, with the so-called test crops in Britain, they found that the DNA from the test crops has been found in honey 2 miles away.
We're taking our argument to government as best we can. We've put together a very comprehensive submission and we'll continue to lobby. We'll continue to try and speak to the media and get our message across in the media. Hopefully we can raise some funds to take out some significant advertising in daily newspapers. Much as we don't want to have to pay for it, it is a message or vehicle to get our message across. And hopefully the net result of that is that people will ring the politicians en masse, demand that they reverse their decision. And I mean, governments are not going to do what become extremely unpopular, which is where we think it's heading on GM. These foods are not safe. People don't want to eat them. And they're going to be proved, well, they are already proved to be dangerous, and that will continue. More proof will come forward. And it's going to rise up and be a huge issue for governments around the world. And so they will reverse their decision. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Regulatory agencies have not looked at this properly. They don't do independent research. They take the data from the companies that want to sell these products that's not peer-reviewed, not scientifically reviewed, and they read it and rubber stamp it. And then when adverse findings come forward, such as the Russian rat study, which had a 55% death amongst the infant rats, the offspring that did survive were sterile and didn't reproduce. The regulatory agencies ignore that. They should be repeating this data. They should be doing this research over and over again. All over the world they should be conducting independent research, and they're not doing that. And I think people need to wake up to the fact that they are not there to protect the public. Regulatory agencies are there to protect the companies. And that's the irony that we're facing, when they are approving dangerous foods and ignoring any evidence that comes forward to show harm that's independently reviewed. It's my sincere belief that GM foods are dangerous, but there is simply no way of knowing what impact that's having on the population at large. It is impossible for us to link back increases in allergies, which is going on across the world, increases in many diseases, cancers, brain tumours. There's many diseases that are on the increase that very likely are linked back to GM foods, but we simply have no way of tracing it back. And that's because there's no labelling, and it's because people's diets are far too complex to be able to actually differentiate and track back using population data. The only way of determining whether they are safe is to feed them to rats or mice over extended periods of time, and then generations of these rats and mice as well, and then include human feeding trials, which is normally what you do with drugs, with pharmaceuticals that are approved for sale. They have to go through extensive animal studies, long-term animal studies, and then human feeding trials. It's never been done with genetically modified foods. I mean, I'm an trained agricultural scientist. I have a major in biochemistry. So I know what they're doing, I know what they're talking about, and it is incredibly arrogant of us to assume that we understand the consequences of cutting and splicing DNA, of disrupting genomes which interrelate in a three-dimensional basis. The feedback loops are incredibly complex to think that we understand the consequences of that cutting and splicing, and it's insanity what we're doing. Is another form of audacity that just leaves me breathless, that you can insert a pesticide into every cell of every plant. And what happens to that pesticide, to that toxin, is it affects every other species out there, whether you eat the plant in some way, it has to affect us, whether it's the microflora in the soil, or the air, or the water. When the plant breaks down in the soils, that toxin goes into the soil, it goes into the water systems. It's craziness to be doing this. Insects adapt, they'll find a way around it. It's actually the fastest way to breed insect resistance is to put the pesticide into the crop instead of an occasional application of a spray. You know, if we really do have to change from chemical, global, industrial agriculture through to sustainable, locally focused agriculture, it's a big transition to make. We may need a few chemical sprays along the way, but I'd rather have a few sprays here and there than I'd have a pesticide in every cell of every plant. That's just insanity. And the only other crops are the herbicide-resistant ones, where weeds are already finding their way around that. Roundup-resistant crops. We have to buy the Roundup. Buy the Roundup to go with the crop. Monsanto owns the seed and the Roundup. What a great way to make corporate profits at humanity's expense and the environment's expense. So we need to rise up and stop it. It's as simple as that. We need to refuse to eat GM foods. We need to demand that governments take it off the shelves. It's not about labelling and choice. These foods are dangerous to eat. We have to take them off the shelves. And that's the simple solution, is to get rid of these foods out of the food supply.
As far as I know, so far, that is sold to us to eat, the only one that they're definitely pushing now are dairy products, because it looks like, according to this, yes, if the animal eats it, it goes through even into the milk. And it, by their own admission now, Warrnambool Cheese and Butter Factory have said that they're going to start feeding their cattle GM. Devondale have said the same. It was in the Herald Sun. And also Murray Goulburn have said they're going to be doing GM. I don't know what labels Murray Goulburn have in Melbourne. The Warrnambool one, I think, is Sungold milk. I believe these people, if they do it, they should say on there, this contains food from cows fed GM fodder or GM whatever. Some way it must be honest, because if children are getting allergies and many adults, this is not fair.
You get to eat the toxin, terrific, lovely.
And that's a hell of a good thing to do for the planet, is to go and grow your own food. It puts a smile on your face every day when you do that.
I worry for farmers, and I feel for that because I was a farmer, yeah?